Hey there, friends. Debbie here. And today we're exploring one of the most misunderstood but yet powerful universal laws, the law of gender. Now, before you make assumptions, this law isn't about biological sex. It's about the masculine and the feminine energies that exist in all of us, in life, in our thoughts, in our business, and in our money. This law is all about creation. Not just physical creation, but the creation of ideas, dreams, relationships, wealth, joy, and fulfillment. And if you want some of that in your life, grab a cup of tea or take me along on your walk and let's dig into what it really means to create from a place of balance and harmony. Welcome to Lead Your Life, the podcast for people who are seeking harmony in business and in life. My name is Debbie Heiser, and I'm an inner mastery and business mindset coach and the chief igniter here at The Lit Up Life. I feel an urgency to help people let go of past messaging so that they can make a lot of money doing what they love without sacrificing what they value most. Welcome. We're glad you're here.
Straight from the corners of my mind is where I find my sanity.
Hey there, and welcome back to Lead Your Life. I'm Debbie Heiser, and I'm so glad you're here with me today. If you're new to the show, welcome. This is a space where we're going to explore the spiritual, emotional, and practical aspects of leadership, life, and purpose, all in how it manifests itself in our businesses and in our professions. Today, as you heard earlier, we're diving into a topic that's really often misunderstood, but it's really transformative. So once we understand it, so we're going to talk about this universal law of gender today. Now, it's not about identity, right? This is an energetic law, as most of them are, but it governs creation itself. And it's really this dance of energy. It's this dance between the masculine and feminine energies. And it really is a part of who we are. And we tend to move some things, like I was in my masculine deeply in corporate America as an executive because the feminine wasn't as openly, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Accepted, right? So it exists in all of us. And it really, no matter who we are or how we identify, we carry both of these energies. And the way that they show up in our lives, in our relationships, in our work, and even our finances, well, it's really powerful stuff. So we're going to dig into that today and even talk about some practicality of it. So whether you're out on a walk, I've heard from many of you that you walk and listen, whether you're driving or you're curled up in your favorite chair, I invite you to really lean into the information in this episode because this one has the potential to really shift how you lead your life, how you lead your business, how you create, and how you receive. So, what is this universal law of gender? Well, the law of gender tells us that everything contains both masculine and feminine principles. And this is really one of the seven hermetic principles, and it shows up in every part of nature. So you see it in how plants grow, and when you think about the masculine and feminine, as we get more into what those are, you're going to see it more and more in nature. It's also about how our ideas come to life. I've mentioned before, and if you haven't heard it, you'll hear it now, where there's this metaphysical, the ideas that we have, and to bring it into this three-dimensional world, we have to create form, right? So the ideas are more the feminine, the form is the masculine and bringing it to life. It's about how our relationships thrive. There's a really good book out there that I recommend to everyone called The Queen's Code. And it's really about this masculine and feminine energy and how it shows up in relationship. And we're going to talk too about how that energy moves, that dance of those energies. So let's talk about the qualities of each of them. And the masculine energy really is about structure, it's about direction. So, for instance, I want to give you some examples of this. Like, I had a direction, I had a vision to build this great big company and sell it when I went to retire. And then what I realized, I was open to receiving messages, which is the feminine, to shift that direction. So, those two work together. Structure is all about the structure. So really, when I think about structure, I think about what am I providing? Well, I have containers that I work with people. I work with people as a private client, and within that, I have two structures. One is a 6 month, one is a 12 month. I have a VIP day, which has its own structure. I have a mastermind for women that has a structure around it. I have, I talked about, this October retreat coming up that has a structure around it and an agenda and what I'm hoping to accomplish, right? So that's the structure is about the containers that you build to support what you do. Now, also the masculine energy is about action. It's about logic, what's in our head, the stability that it provides for us, and also the focus about where we're heading and that ability to keep that focus. Now, feminine energy really is about our intuition and really tapping into that intuitive, it's the heart space and the intuition. And when those two things are combined with our logic, it creates a very powerful way to make decisions, a way to show up in the world, a way to do what we do. The feminine energy is also about creativity. It's about, I don't know about you all, but I know when I was in corporate America, everything was about innovation, 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 and constant change. And so that creativity allows us to innovate because really innovation is an adult word for creativity and imagination. So the feminine energy is about creating. It's also about being receptive, and being able to receive what's coming, or what's here. It's about fluidity, right? So this idea of, and for those of you watching the YouTube, you see me kind of moving around a little bit. It's about this idea of being able to be in a flow. And flow simply means like when you're doing something and you lose all track of time, that's flow. We have a nurturing, this feminine energy has a nurturing sense about it, whether it's nurturing a project that we have, a dog that we have, or our family, whatever it is, right? This nurturing sense. And then presence. So being present in the moment is also about being in your feminine energy. Now, one is not better than the other. And in fact, creation only happens when both energies are present. The masculine gives the seed, the feminine is the soil, right? So the seed alone can't grow, and the soil without a seed won't necessarily sprout new life, but together they create. So if you think about that from a gardening perspective, I know I always used to be perplexed. And a lot of plants have both the masculine and feminine, but my Aunt Mickey used to grow gooseberries. And if you've never had gooseberry pie, I don't like the commercial ones because they're too sweet. She used to make it with half the sugar and it was so tart you had to have ice cream to be able to like, because my mouth is watering just talking about it. But the gooseberry plant, you had to have a male plant and a female plant. It didn't just have both together, but you had to create that and nurture that opportunity for that to happen. So now, when you think about this, this shows up in ideas too. You might have a beautiful vision, which is the feminine energy, but if you have this vision, but you don't take inspired action, and the inspired action is the masculine, then it stays in that metaphysical, it stays as an idea. Or maybe you have a really strong work ethic and you have tons of action happening. And sometimes I call that busy work because it may not be inspired, but you don't create space to reflect, to be inspired, or to have the deep feelings of joy, which is the feminine side. When you're out of harmony, then that creates stuckness, that creates burnout. That creates you being really tired. I was talking with a friend the other day about being really tired, right? And so you can always tell because you feel stuck or you feel a little bit of this dichotomy of tension or you're feeling burned out and tired. Now, when these energies are in harmony, that's when you feel aligned, you feel empowered, you feel like you're in the right vehicle, right? I never want to say I've arrived because that means for me, I'm up at the pearly gates, but I'm in the right vehicle. So that's just some ideas about what the masculine and feminine are. Now, when you think about the law of gender in life, we also have to talk about our conscious and subconscious brains because we need to talk about how this shows up in our day-to-day lives. So, and a lot of times it shows up in our day-to-day lives or lives, not lies, lives because it's in our subconscious programming. And many of you have heard me talk about the conscious and subconscious brain. And the thing to keep in mind is our subconscious mind is running the show about 95% of the time. We don't think it is, but it is. And that mind is shaped early on. 0 to 7 is a huge formation of messages. And so it is shaped early on by what we see, what we hear, what we experience. So, how can we kind of determine where we spend a lot of our time? And it doesn't mean that it's bad. It means that we tend to have a preference that we go to. Now, if you can keep that in harmony, that's when, for me, when I feel like I'm woohoo, I'm in my best thing, right? I'm leading my lit up life. So ways to help yourself uncover some of this is think back in your childhood, and I'd say 0 to 21, but 0 to 7 is your early raising, 7 to 14, and then 14 to 21. Were you praised for being strong or productive or in control? Right? That was a big thing for me, like the productivity and, getting good grades and performance was a big thing for me. And then what happens is we equate that with love, right? And so then I couldn't have more of a feminine, I couldn't receive. I remember very strongly some messages I got from my mother, who was a fabulous mother, about not receiving, not, she grew up extremely poor. And so anytime something came to us that we didn't work for or we weren't productive with, that wasn't okay to receive that. Now, she learned very differently and she received a lot of help when she was sick with breast cancer. But the point being is that was something that was brought up, right, in our household. Now, it doesn't make her bad. It's just what she learned and then what we learned from that as well. Another question to ask is, were you encouraged to trust your feelings or were you told that they were too much? When I talk to people and they say that, oh, I know I cry too much, I'm like, no, no, like that is an intuitive thing. You're in touch with your feminine. Again, it can be out of balance because you don't have the inspired action to go along with it. But a third question to ask yourself too is, did you see people in your life taking time to rest and receive? Or were they in this constant push, this constant hustle, this constant striving? Now, again, neither one of those is bad. We need both. That's the point of this. And when we constantly push and strive, it's like a copy machine, right? Like if you run that copy machine 100% of the time with no breaks or no rest and respite, then it's going to break down a lot faster and have more breakdowns as time goes on. Versus if we allow for some rest, we allow that time to regenerate, right? Then it has more longevity. So I want you to think about that in relationship to your mental health, your spiritual health, your physical health. All of those things are impacted by this. So when you think about this, these early messages, I'm going to sneeze and I'm so sorry. Ooh, excuse me. These early messages shape how we relate to action versus rest. They shape how we respond to planning versus being in flow. A lot of times when I talk to people, they almost feel bad for being in flow because they feel like it needs to be more structured, right? Because that's how we're taught. And then also this idea of control versus surrender. And control is nothing more than fear showing up. And when we surrender, that's when the magic happens. So often these pairings are that law of polarity, right? They mirror the imbalance of masculine and feminine energy in us. If we're too controlled, then we need to move more towards the middle. If we're too surrendered and we're not taking some inspired action, then that's a problem too. So it's about, there's some plus or minus from the middle point, but it's about trying to have that dance in the middle. So the key insight to this, it goes to everything I talk about with brain science. Our subconscious beliefs create our reality. So part of what I do is help people bring those subconscious messages into the consciousness so that you can start to work through those and start to unwind them. So if you've internalized a belief like I have to be hard, or I have to be hard, I have to work hard to be worthy, or I shouldn't slow down, or do all of your homework before you play, or do all your chores before you play, you might be suppressing the feminine. Or many times I heard, I'll give you something to cry about, right? Those are subtle messages that it's not okay to show up in your feminine. The opposite of that holds true. If you grew up in chaos and craved structure, You might cling to the masculine as a way to stay in safety and control. If you grew up in chaos and you crave some of that structure, the chaos might turn you off to some of the feminine, right? So it's really about healing this imbalance. And when you heal this imbalance, it's again not eliminating one energy, but it's about honoring the natural rhythm of both, which is the universal law of rhythm. So here's some questions to ask yourself and think about, maybe even journal about some of these. Where do I need more softness in my life? And where do I need more structure? Where have I maybe been overriding my intuition and not trusting my intuition? And where have I been maybe hesitating to take aligned action? So each those two questions really have two sides, right? Softness and structure. Where am I overriding my intuition? And where maybe have I been hesitating to take aligned action? So we're going to take a quick break and then we'll be back. But in this break, I want you to pause and take a deep breath in and let go of your breath. And then notice the part that's resonating for you of what might be your preference or where you might spend most of your time right now and where you like where you're in overdrive and where you might be ungrounded and not have balance and where could you bring in more balance. So this is your gentle nudge to listen not only to our little break here but also the fact that you have the wisdom and strength within you and it's really about trusting what's rising for you. So we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. I want to give a quick shout out to my favorite online community for women entrepreneurs. It's called Build Her. If you've craved a space to connect with other women who truly get the journey, this is your space. We go live monthly for in-depth training on all things business, and it's where you'll get the latest news from the Lit Up Life first. Plus a chance to swap stories, tips, and triumphs with an amazing community of women. It's welcoming, it's fun, and it's where we cheer each other on through every up and down of entrepreneurship. Join us and let's build each other up. Check it out at thelituplife.com/buildher. We're back from break. We've talked about what masculine and feminine energy is, where you might be needing a little bit more feminine energy, where you might be needing more masculine energy, what that looks like in a practical way. Now I want to talk about business, which you know is one of my favorite topics. And especially because I feel like there's so many people out there right now, myself included, that are creating purpose-driven work in the world. And so in the business world, especially in a more traditional or corporate space, I mentioned earlier that masculine energy often dominates, right? We're told to hustle, we're told to crush our goals, we want to scale fast, we want to push forward at all costs. And really, let's be honest, these are really incredibly useful. We need structure, we need strategy, we need to take inspired action. But again, when we lean too hard into the masculine energy, we burn out. We disconnect from the why we started what we're doing, why we're in the field that we're in. We forget to listen to that inner knowing. We ignore the spiritual side, we ignore our bodies. And really the feminine side of business, that's what brings soul into your strategy. It's how you connect to your vision. It's where your most magnetic offers are born. It's what allows you to show up authentically and not just to sell, but to serve and build meaningful relationships. I've had clients who are brilliant. All of my clients are brilliant. They're organized, they're disciplined, they're goal orientated, but they felt really unfulfilled. And when we explore what's missing, it's always the same thing. They weren't giving themselves enough space to dream, to rest. And that's honestly why I have retreats. We spend some time resting, we spend some time playing, and we spend some time working. Because we have to allow space to dream, to rest, to play, and to slow down, to listen to our inner voice, our intuition. Now, on the flip side, I've also worked with very deeply intuitive and creative men and women who were afraid to commit to structure. They had incredible ideas, but they weren't anchored. Their businesses lacked that container for their brilliance. The structure scared them. Their preference was to be in the creative part of it and not add the structure. So again, the feminine energy gives the ideas, the masculine energy brings it into form. And the momentum happens when we combine both. Now, how does this show up in regards to money? Because as you know, I talk about I want to help people make more money doing what they love and being very clear on what it is that their vocation is, what they feel called to do without sacrificing what's important. So when we think about money and finances, part of why I want to bring this up is where we do life in most places, we do it in other places too. Where we show up in one place, we show up everywhere. So money responds to our inner balance of feminine and masculine. Masculine energy with money is about goal setting, it's the budgeting, it's the structure, it's about building or scaling, it's about investing. It's also about knowing what you stand for and what you're available for and what you're not available for. Some people call that boundaries. I don't like to call it boundaries because it builds a wall. But the feminine energy with money is about trusting your own worth. I just had a conversation this morning with someone over coffee that was offering something that honestly should be twice what she was wanting to ask for. And so I told her, I said, charge what you're charging, like what you feel comfortable and have your arms around. But once you've sold three of them, and you've built your momentum with that, raise your rates because, and there's a tipping point. You don't want to overcharge for something, but you have to trust that worth. So that feminine energy shows up in that way. Now, most people know how to budget. They don't necessarily love it. They know how to create goals. Well, the way we've been taught goals. I set goals a little differently. They've been taught potentially that in this world we want to scale and be bigger and blah, blah, blah. But the feminine energy is about that receiving. It's about, I can't tell you how many clients I have worked with or that I talk to that are not clients that struggle with receiving. And how that shows up is they don't follow up on their AR and collect the money. They make it difficult to do business with. And so the flip side of that is when you're ready to receive, you're going to follow up on your AR. You're going to have a masculine system to help follow up with that. You're going to receive the money when it comes in and make it easy to do business with you. They allow money to flow when you're in your feminine energy. You connect that to a value, not a price. And you start to feel safe that it's okay to be successful. It's okay to have wealth. Particularly women. I was reading a book for book club that was actually back in the 60s. It wasn't that long ago, 50s and 60s, where women still had to have men sign off on a bank account, right? And I know there's all sorts of things happening right now in the political realm with some of this, but it's about being okay, stepping up and saying, I want wealth. So I coached tons of people, and particularly women who were making money and they downplay their success. They give discounts. I'm not a big person to give discounts. I usually add more value to something. And they don't raise their prices because I find that this feminine idea of receiving money, and this is both men and women I've worked with, that's where guilt and shame lie, right? Like we have these money stories. And if you have money stories, go out and sign up for my sales workshop. Go to the website and look under programs because selling with soul is about value. So, anyway, I digress there for a minute. But when you downplay your success or you give discounts or you don't raise your rates to add, like as you add value, that's an imbalance in the feminine. Now, I've had others that come and control is the thing for them, which really is only a mask for fear. And they have plans and spreadsheets and, they're operating from a fear scarcity mode. And that really is distorted masculine energy. They get so caught up in the spreadsheet or the goal that they need to achieve that they create all this pressure on themselves that then actually turns them away from doing what they wanted to do. So when you're balanced, money just becomes a tool. It's not a trigger for you because when you are balanced in this feminine and masculine, you attract it, you direct currency, you hold it, and you use it with both grace and strength. So, I mean, really, let's be honest. We're meant to prosper and not just financially. That is just one piece of it. But in your life, in your energy that you have, in your ability to feel feelings and joy in the impact that we're making, we are meant to prosper. And prosperity really comes when you're fully aligned, when you let both the human being and the human doer show up in the world, when you dream and you have a voice, right? So this actually maps so well to the law of polarity. I'm going to have to do a law of polarity podcast now soon. So as I wrap up, I want you to take this in. We are made of both action and intuition. We're made of both fire and flow. So the passion and the flow, both the ability to go out and build and the ability to slow down, listen, and receive. The universal law of gender is not just a concept, it's a mirror. It shows us where we're in alignment and where we're out of sync. So I'm going to leave you again with similar questions that I gave you earlier, but take this away with you today and spend a little time. Now, some of you may or may not be journalers. If you're a journaler, write these down and use them to write with. If you're not and you just want to resonate in your brain, resonate in your brain. But where can you soften a little bit? Where can you have a little more patience, have some creativity, have some dreaming? Where can you play? Second question is, where can you anchor? Where can you ground yourself? And then where can you allow both the divine masculine and the divine feminine co-create through you? So take a look at those questions. Kind of, some of you may not be all that into the woo, but allow it to kind of resonate with you and think through, where do I need more inspired action? Where do I need to soften and receive? One of the things that I did very early on to help receive was that I realized, my then husband would always come over and open my car door for me. And particularly when it was cold outside, that used to annoy me. I'm like, just get in the car and start the car. It's cold or it's hot. I want the air conditioner on. When in fact, he was just trying to serve me and open my door, and I could have softened there. So one of the things that I challenged myself to do when I got divorced was to allow other people to open doors for me, because he wasn't saying that I wasn't capable of opening my own car door. So when people open a door for me, that's an area where I can soften and receive. And that's a very small step to looking at ways to do that. So here's your next step. If today's episode stirred something in you, or if you're ready to cast your next bold vision and bring it into form, so going from that metaphysical, even you might be needing to go into the metaphysical and dream a little bit, and then bring it into form with clarity and confidence and spiritual alignment, because this is spiritual work that we're doing. I want you to join us at the Cast Your Vision Retreat. It's happening October 23rd through the 26th in this beautiful town that I live in, Sandpoint, Idaho. And this is where we'll do work together. You'll get quiet enough to hear your inner wisdom and then clear enough to act on it. You'll be surrounded by other women ready to lead differently from power and presence. And you'll walk away with the next chapter of your vision mapped out and the tools to bring it to life. So spots are limited and they are filling up. So don't wait. You can go to thelituplife.com/retreat to reserve your space, or send a message if you have any questions. And as always, if this episode spoke to you, share it with someone you love. Let's keep spreading this message of grounded, soul-led leadership. And until next time, go lead your life in wholeness and in harmony. Look for ways to soften and open to your feminine and have inspired action in your masculine. Everybody have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon. That's a wrap for this conversation. I'm so glad you've joined us. Remember to subscribe to the podcast so you can catch all of our future episodes, and visit us at thelituplife.com for details on how you can become part of the Lit Up Life community. A quick shout out to my friend Jackie Wilson and her friends, the creators of our amazing theme music. Thanks so much for allowing us to share this perfect song with our listeners. Looking forward to having you listen in to our next episode.
See the colors